5,000 years ago, there was no Egypt. Not the Egypt you're picturing anyway. Instead, there were two rival kingdoms, one to the north, one to the south, separated by culture, by crowns, and by a river that both of them depended on to survive. What happened next built one of the longest-lasting civilizations in human history. Not a lucky accident. A deliberate, brutal, brilliant rise to power. This is how Egypt became an empire. This is the first episode in a series tracing ancient Egypt's story from two scattered kingdoms to the empire that built the pyramids, ruled for 3,000 years, and outlasted almost every civilization around it. Let's start at the beginning. Around 3100 BCE, Egypt wasn't one country. It was two. Upper Egypt sat in the south, a narrow strip of farmland hugging the Nile. Lower Egypt sat in the north, where the river fanned out into the wide, fertile Nile Delta before reaching the Mediterranean. Confusingly, Upper Egypt is actually further south. That's because upper and lower refer to the flow of the Nile, not a map. The river flows north, so Upper Egypt is upstream. Each kingdom had its own king, its own capital, and its own guardian symbol. Upper Egypt wore the white crown and looked to the vulture goddess Nekhbet. Lower Egypt wore the red crown and looked to the cobra goddess Wajet. Two kingdoms, one river. That tension wouldn't last. Around 3100 BCE, a king from the south did something no one had managed before. He conquered the north. His name was likely Narmer, sometimes identified with a king called Menes in later records. Historians still debate whether these were the same person or two figures merged together over time. But the story they tell is consistent. A southern king marched north, defeated Lower Egypt, and united both kingdoms under one crown. The proof survives on a slate tablet called the Narmer palette. On one side, the king wears the white crown of the south. On the other, he wears the red crown of the north. Together, they became the double crown, the skent, worn by every pharaoh who followed for the next 3,000 years. This single act of unification is the moment Egypt, as a civilization, was born. Not two lands anymore. One kingdom, stretching along the Nile from the first cataract in the south to the Mediterranean in the north. A new capital was founded at Memphis, right at the meeting point between the two old kingdoms, a deliberate symbol of unity. From here, the pharaohs would rule. With Egypt united, something remarkable happened. The state became stable enough and organized enough to build on a scale the world had never seen. This period is called the Old Kingdom, and it's when Egypt truly began acting like an empire rather than just a kingdom. A pharaoh wasn't just a ruler. He was considered a living god, the link between the human world and the divine. That belief is the entire reason the pyramids exist. If the king is a god, his death isn't just a funeral. It's a transition into eternity, and it demanded a monument to match. It started with the step pyramid of Djoser, the first large stone structure of its kind anywhere in the world. Within a few generations, that idea evolved into the smooth-sided pyramids we recognize today, culminating in the Great Pyramid of Giza, built for the pharaoh Khufu around 2560 BCE. To build something like that, a kingdom needs more than ambition. It needs a taxation system, a food surplus, organized labor, skilled engineers, and a government capable of coordinating all of it for decades. Egypt had built that machine. And that machine is what a functioning empire actually looks like, long before a single soldier crosses a border. No empire rises in a straight line, and Egypt's didn't either. Around 2181 BCE, the Old Kingdom collapsed. Weaker pharaohs, competing regional governors, and possibly a prolonged drought along the Nile broke the centralized state apart. This era is known as the First Intermediate Period, and for roughly a century, Egypt fractured back into rival territories, echoing the divided land it had once been. But unification had already proven itself once. Around 2055 BCE, a ruler from Thebes reunited the country by force, starting the Middle Kingdom, and restoring the idea that Egypt was meant to be one nation, not several. The next real test came from outside. Around 1650 BCE, a foreign people known as the Hyksos took control of Lower Egypt, ruling the north while an Egyptian dynasty held on in the south. For the first time, Egypt had been occupied by outsiders, and it didn't sit well. Around 1550 BCE, a pharaoh named Ahmose I led the campaign that finally drove the Hyksos out and reunified Egypt once again. But this time, reunification wasn't the end goal. It was the starting point. What followed is called the New Kingdom, and it's when Egypt stopped simply defending its borders and started expanding well beyond them. Pharaohs like Thutmose III pushed Egyptian control into the Levant in the east and deep into Nubia in the south. Egypt was no longer just a kingdom protecting the Nile. It was an empire. In under 2,000 years, Egypt went from two rival kingdoms to a unified state, to the builders of the pyramids, to an empire stretching across 3 continents worth of influence. And this is still early. The most famous names in Egyptian history, Hatshepsut, Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, Ramesses the Great, all come after everything you just watched. Next time, we're looking at one of the boldest rulers Egypt ever produced, a queen who didn't just rule beside a king. She had herself crowned as one. If you want to follow the whole story of ancient Egypt from here, subscribe so you don't miss it.